Hey everybody, it's Preston Clark. Last week we tore down the DocuSign acquisition of Lexion. That was a story by numbers. We did it in the style of Harper's Index, and we got a ton of feedback. I was wrong on some points that people clarified, which was super helpful. I got some really, really good questions and some great engagement. A few hours ago, it was announced that Ironclad is launching an eSign tool. Do I think that this is as big of a story as Lexion being acquired? I don't, but I do think that it is significant to analyze the relationship and the implications of this product launch as it compares and aligns with the DocuSign acquisition of Lexion, because I think that there's going to be lots of misunderstandings of what this is and what this is not as a move by Ironclad. I just read an article that said Ironclad is, getting into the eSign space to compete with Zoho and PandaDoc, and I don't think that that is true. And so let me tell you why. Let me tell you about the significance of it. And if you think I'm wrong, tell me. And if you think if you think this is interesting, we'd love your feedback as well. I'm going to illustrate a business concept first by talking about Uber and Gusto for all of 30 seconds, and then we'll get back to talk about DocuSign and Ironclad. What is the atomic unit of a business? Do you know the atomic unit of your business? I bet you know the atomic unit of these two businesses. Uber, it is the ride. It is the first ride. It's getting you from where you are to your destination, 5-star experience. Gusto is a popular payroll company. You may have used it, may be familiar. Their atomic unit is the first payroll run. They need you to do that. That is the thing that moves their business forward. What is the atomic unit for DocuSign? It is the eSign. It is a revolution. 20 years ago, we were not e-signing. Today, seemingly everyone is. As it turns out, not everyone is, because they still have a huge portion of their market share that is untapped, that is available. They have green space available to them. But as we'll talk about, turns out that green space is no longer big enough for the public markets, at least, for their valuation. They need another story. They need another thesis. But historically, they have been a business focused on the signature. That is their atomic unit. That is much different from the atomic unit or the thesis of a contract lifecycle management company like Ironclad. So when Ironclad says that it is launching an eSign tool, this is how significant it is or how insignificant it is. So I actually think that this is, I want to make a big deal about it. I'm really happy that Ironclad is going into this space. I think it's the right decision. I think we all could have predicted this was going to happen. But it's really obvious, and it's not a risky bet, precisely because all they are doing is replacing one of the nodes in this continuum. They are a workflow product, among other things, and eSign is just a piece of that. And so I think it's very, very interesting that that DocuSign and Ironclad are now pursuing this. But when we talk about the converse, which is that part of the story, not the Ironclad launch, but the acquisition last week, well, DocuSign now has to go get its users to do all of these other things with Lexion. And that is a much harder sale. It's a much larger education process and arc from an adoption perspective, not to mention that DocuSign is primarily a consumer business. And so it's only going to be a small percentage of its customers, of its users, that ever convert over to Lexion. So I think it's really interesting to distinguish the ground that has to be covered as it relates to this image, but also as it relates to their core business historically. And I use this as a comparison. This may not make sense to all of you, but let me just, sort of as a comparison, let me hang here for just a minute. As it looks on paper, at least today, you might say, okay, right now, cold start, Ironclad and DocuSign have the same features. They both have eSign, they both have search and retrieval, they both have audit reporting, they both have contract requests, they both have approval, they both have AI, on and on and on. But the difference is their historic DNA from a go-to-market perspective, and I think that this is where DocuSign is going to really struggle. I might be wrong. Time will tell. And I think that Ironclad is going to nail this. And so the analogy that I would give is the same as between Qualtrics and SurveyMonkey. Qualtrics, many times the market cap now of SurveyMonkey. Qualtrics is of SurveyMonkey, much larger business, despite the fact that they're both just survey companies, right? And so when I say both Ironclad and DocuSign have the same features, the same capabilities, it matters what their DNA is. And so I'm giving you these. You may not even be familiar with Qualtrics, but I know you're familiar with SurveyMonkey the same way you're familiar with DocuSign. But when you think about SurveyMonkey, what you think about is the bake sale at your kid's middle school, right? Because it is a consumer product. Whereas Qualtrics is competing against Glint and Gainsight and any employee engagement survey, any software that has a survey layer beneath it. Qualtrics has worked their way into from an enterprise sales perspective, and so their valuation is much higher despite having fewer customers. And so I bring this up as a point of comparison to say it's going to be very interesting to see who wins this race, not from a customer acquisition perspective or total number of customers, but from a revenue perspective. Because what I suspect is that it's going to be a very easy phone call for a customer success manager at Ironclad to call into L'Oreal, just as an example. I know it's one of their case studies and one of their enterprise customers. And let's say, this is all hypothetical, let's say L'Oreal is spending $1 million a year with DocuSign, and L'Oreal is massively adopted and penetrated and implemented with Ironclad around the circle. And they call and they say, we want to rip out DocuSign. You're paying them $1 million. We're going to charge you $500,000, and you're going to get the same level of stability from a product perspective, but you're going to save 50%, and you're going to get some features that you don't have now. And I think that pitch goes really, really well. And I think it's really hard, not impossible. I think it's really hard for DocuSign to pick up the phone and say, we've just acquired a new business. It's new technology, probably on a different code base than we're familiar with. It doesn't perfectly integrate with our tools yet, but it's here and we're starting to sell it now. And we're going to run a full process. So we're going to tell you about the AI capabilities. We're going to tell you about repository capabilities. We're going to tell you about, document creation and editing and on and on and on. And you have someone that has just been consuming this point solution that is now trying to understand the implications of this full circle. This is harder. This is way, way harder, and it's going to be a much longer sales cycle, and the take rate is going to be much, much lower than it will be for Ironclad. Now, of course, again, DocuSign's numbers are order of magnitude larger than Ironclad's, but I think if you whittle it down to the ideal customer profile, let's just say that there's 20,000, 50,000 viable prospects. I think it's going to take some serious time to bring people along into this platform. This is, I think, I'm going to end here. Kudos to Ironclad. They're exceptional at product marketing. They're exceptional at creating narratives around the products that they're launching. And I say this in the most sort of loving way possible, but this launch is wonderfully underwhelming, which speaks to their level of confidence, because what they're saying is that we're going to save you money. It's integrated into the existing tool, and we'll give you this cool little pop-up. And this, what's on the screen now, it's cool, for sure. It's cool. What this is at the point of signature on your side, you're going to get a key term summary that shows you the key deal terms before you hit sign. You can see who's approved it. You can see who's signed it. That's cool. DocuSign can't do that today. Maybe they will in the future with Ironclad or with Lexion. But this isn't, you wouldn't bet a new product on this differentiation. This isn't enough. But it is enough for them because they own everything else. So this is just really awesome. I'm fascinated when you've conquered so many other hills, when you've done the hard work everywhere else, when you can come out and just win in this way, even though you're going against a behemoth. Because listen, DocuSign is a publicly traded company. They have a lot more employees. They have a lot more brand awareness than Ironclad. As big as Ironclad is and as well branded as they are, DocuSign's DocuSign. But I think that it's not going to matter. I think that the advantage here is Ironclad. I think that they're going to be able to move much faster in getting adoption of the eSign. And I think that it's going to be a multi-year journey for DocuSign to figure out how to get Lexion in the hands of its customers. Disagree with me. If I missed something, if I overlooked something, if I'm totally wrong on something, please put it in the comments. We'd love your feedback. Thanks, everybody.